listening to the Full Court Press with your host, Drew Duncan. Don't you dare touch that dial. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Full Court Press. I am your host, Drew Duncan. Don't forget you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Drew Duncan 83. You know, the Minnesota Vikings have been a huge topic of discussion, obviously, this week, and clearly more so than the Philadelphia Eagles with their dramatic win over the New Orleans Saints. Probably deservedly so. You know, I don't know if we're in awe of Case Keenum. I don't know if we're inspired by Case Keenum. I don't know if we're waiting for Case Keenum to fall flat on his face. And I'm seriously trying to figure out what's the motive when people start talking about him. Are they happy for the guy? Are they enamored? Or are they skeptical? I mean, because you see a guy like this, right, come out of nowhere. Journeyman quarterback in the NFL, not having a good career, and next thing you know, he's in the NFC Championship game. As a guy who replaced two starters in this league. Not one, but two. Two starters. And when Terry Bridgewater came back, there was not as much speculation as I thought there would be that he was going to eventually replace Case Keenum. And it was something that, to me, was kind of kept on a lower level. And I thought it was going to explode way more than it did. I thought the locker room for the Minnesota Vikings may implode, given that guys have a tendency in situations like this to maybe start taking sides. Rumors begin to circulate. And the next thing you know, you've got a locker room full of guys who are at odds with each other over who the starting quarterback should be. But that didn't really seem to happen with the Vikings. And I think, to me, that resonates with not only the humbleness and meekness of Terry Bridgewater, first and foremost, but it speaks to who Case Keenum is in that locker room. And I think that's something that we're not pointing out enough. Look, everybody knows by now who Case Keenum is. And you've probably even heard the stats on Case Keenum. You know, all the passing records he set when he was at Houston, going in the NFL, not really being successful, getting replaced by Jared Goff, playing with Nick Foles with the Rams, being under Sam Bradford, you probably know that he only had 24 touchdown passes, 20 interceptions, somewhere in that neighborhood coming into this season. And this year he's got 22 TDs and only 7 picks. So obviously in one season he's completely improved. You probably know that stuff. But what's not being talked about enough is obviously who he is in that locker room to those guys, because if Terry Bridgewater, the big talk was Minnesota wasn't going to be a good team without him. Last year they started off okay. Bradford couldn't finish the deal. This year they didn't start off so great. Keenum comes in and takes care of business. He goes, 11-3 the rest of the way in the season? And number two, we're not talking enough about what it means now in the NFL, to me, for guys who should be following this mentality. You see, we're always so caught up in the replacement guys who make these big moves, and we're kind of enamored with them. But the minute they fall on their face, it's, we should have kept so-and-so. But if they succeed, well, then it was the right thing to do. Obviously, you think about Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe, that whole situation. You think about Brett Favre replacing a quarterback after he got traded from Atlanta to Green Bay and was still a backup there. Look at who he became with Case Keenum. Him replacing two starting quarterbacks in one season, being able to maintain the way that he hasn't changed his play. They haven't changed play calling, except for every week we seem to see a little bit more complex play calling, especially in the first half of games. I think what's going on with Keenum is he's setting examples of what every quarterback in the league should strive to be. Keenum is taking this football team on his back. Remember, they drafted Delvin Cook. He was supposed to be the running back of the future. It's why they got rid of Adrian Peterson. Ended up with McKinnon. Then ended up with another running back, Stephon Diggs. He got hurt for a couple of weeks. The point is this. Talk about the numbers all you want to. But who Case Keenum is to this football team in that locker room is who everybody should obviously aspire to be. There's not enough that could truly be said about Bridgewater, Keenum, and Bradford, and how all three of those guys, who have all been starters in this league, have handled this situation. The other thing that I look at, though, in this game is obviously the Philadelphia Eagles. You have to, right? They're in a game, blah. When you look at this team and you look at Nick Foles and you look in the second half of what he did last week, the thing I said was he didn't play great football, but he looked like a veteran who was good enough to get the job done. If Nick Foles plays a full 4 quarters, though, this could be a different game. Defensively, I think that even though people will probably talk more about Minnesota's defense, I think the Philadelphia Eagles have a better defense. Even though they don't maybe necessarily have the deep ball threat the way that the New Orleans Saints did when you think about Minnesota and how well they defended a lot of those deep pass plays, I still think that Nick Foles could be a guy who could show you the kind of leader that he truly is. Now, I was a Nick Foles fan. When Mike Vick got hurt and he came in, I remember getting on the radio and saying, this guy's about to have a great year. I don't know why. I don't know what. It was gut instinct. Was it 27 touchdown passes to 2 interceptions? But the thing that bothers me about Nick Foles is everybody says that they're waiting for him to be 2013 Nick Foles again. And I'm just like, why? Like, what? People are supposed to evolve. And I get it. A lot of people will say, well, he hasn't evolved. He's got worse. Yeah, I understand that. Okay, I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to say that he has or hasn't. But one of the things that I pointed out, and this is something to me that still rings true, is effort plays. And last weekend, we saw the Eagles against the Falcons make a lot of effort plays. And a couple of them were Nick Foles. You see, that little extra can get you a long way. And these are two football teams that both have given that little extra. Everybody wants to bash Marcus Williams for missing that tackle on Stephon Diggs, forgetting that little extra was, number one, Diggs' awareness. Number two, just getting up and going for it. Number three, keeping his balance on the sideline. Number four, holding himself up onto the field. I mean, going into the air to get the ball. Number five, does everybody forget what it took to make that play? It was an effort play by Diggs that won that ball game. There were effort plays on those interceptions that won that ball game. It was a lack of effort when you throw a screenplay to a wide receiver who's ran this play and sneed how many different times, and you've got a guy wide open, and not only do you miss the throw, but Kamara doesn't even really jump for the ball. Lack of effort, and that little extra could have been the difference in that football game. And I think that's going to be the difference in this game today, or pardon me, Sunday, between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings. I think it's going to be that little extra that propels both of these teams to a victory. And whoever makes those effort plays is going to be the team to come away with the victory. Defensively, for both teams, we know what it's going to take. Look, obviously, Nick Foles doesn't have the running capability of a Carson Wentz. But I think on some of those option plays, if he keeps them instead of, giving the ball up, because I've seen him go running, there's a lane there, dude. Just nobody's watching for you. Keep that damn ball. Does that a couple times, you may be able to draw that defense in. A little bit of extra effort. Open up some pass plays over the middle for you, well within Nick Foles' completion percentage range. And Nick Foles over the middle, I don't think there's too many quarterbacks in the NFL that are more accurate. Minnesota Vikings, look, I think you play press man on the outside. I think you don't really do a whole lot of zone. You run some blitz packages defensively. Offensively, I think you set yourself up by using the pass to get to the run. I think you allow Keenum to dictate the pace of the game. And I think you allow him to make a lot of calls during the game. I think you run no huddle. I think you give him a play card. And I think you say, look, man, if we go no huddle, I want you to start running some play calls. Don't look to the sideline. Don't do anything. Keep that defense on the field and let's control the pace of the game. If they speed it up, I think there'll be a little bit too much for the Philadelphia Eagles to handle. If they want to play slow down football, then I think Philly could dictate the pace of the game, and we may see the result that we did last week, and that is the Eagles winning a low-scoring game. This is the Full Court Press. I am Drew Duncan. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, it's all at Drew Duncan 83, and I am on YouTube as Drew Duncan. Don't you dare touch that dial.